2.1, the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem is used for right triangles to find side lengths. Okay. The square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides. That's technically what the equation is. So we're going to have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So just as a note, c is always opposite the 90-degree angle. Okay, and a and b are interchangeable. Okay, in a right triangle, the hypotenuse is always c. Okay, you can use the Pythagorean theorem to find the length of one side of a right triangle given the lengths of the other two sides. Okay, example 1. Find the length of the hypotenuse to the nearest tenth of a unit. So we have 4 and 3, and this is our 90 degrees. This would be c. This is going to be our hypotenuse for sure. So we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. What we're going to do is we're going to sub in 3 and 4 to the a and b. These are interchangeable. We can call it a and b, or you could have called it b and a. Okay. So we have 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. C's are unknown. 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, equals c squared. Okay, 9 plus 16 is 25. And what we're going to do is we're going to root both sides. So 5 equals c. Okay, for example B, we're going to locate the right angle, and we're going to put an arrow through the hypotenuse. So this side is going to be c. So we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay. 12.2 and 14.5, it doesn't matter, we'll call this a and b. Okay, so 12.2 squared plus 14.5 squared equals c squared. So I get 148.84 plus 210.25 equals c squared. So altogether, that's 359.09 equals c squared. Now, if we were to root both sides, we're going to isolate for c, and we get c equals, let's go 18.9, and that's going to be in meters. That's in meters as well. Example 2, find the length of the indicated side to the nearest tenth of a unit. So in these two examples, we're actually solving for either A or B. So let's identify the 90-degree angle. We're going to put an arrow through the hypotenuse. Okay, that means that it's opposite. And now let's call this A and B. So if we had a squared plus b squared equals c squared, let's go ahead and sub in x for the A. So we have x squared plus 5 squared equals 13 squared. So we have x squared plus 5 squared is 25 equals, and then 13 squared is 169. Now we have to isolate for x squared. How we're going to do that is we're going to subtract 25 from both sides. So we'd have 169 minus 25, and we get 144. Now we're going to root both sides, and we get x equals 12. And that's going to be in meters. Okay, so a little bit more work when we're given the hypotenuse, because we have to do a little bit of algebra. Okay, and for B, identify the right angle. The opposite side is going to be C, so that's going to be the 12 squared. And now we have, let's just call this A and B. So a squared plus 6.2 squared equals 12 squared. Okay, so what's 6.2 squared? I get 38.44. And that's going to equal 144. Now to isolate the a squared, we're going to have to subtract 38.44 from each side. So I get 144 minus 38.44, I get 105.56. Okay, root both sides, and we're left with A equals 10.3 meters. Okay, example 3. Mark is planning to wash the windows of his house. He rests a 3-meter long ladder against the side of the house. So when we're assuming a house, we assume vertical, and then the ground would be like horizontal. Now, he's resting a 3-meter ladder, so that actually gives us a lot of information. Okay, this tells us that the wall and the floor meet at 90 degrees, and this is 3 meters because it's the ladder. This is also our hypotenuse. Okay, the foot of the ladder is 1 meter away from the house. So right here, that's 1 meter. How high up the house will the ladder reach? Okay, and then round to the nearest hundredths. So let's call this A, and let's just call this B. So we're going to go A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now, 1 squared plus, we don't know B squared, so we just put it as B squared, equals 3 squared. So we get 1 plus B squared equals 9. So how do we isolate for the B squared? Subtract 1 from each side. We get B squared equals 8. And then what we want to do is just root it. We get 2.83 meters. Because this is a word problem, we're going to go, therefore, the ladder reaches 2.83 meters up the wall.